Welcome to Across the Pond Aces podcast. You already know who we are, so we don't really need to introduce ourselves further. What a week it has been since we last joined you. Boy, oh boy, it has been a roller coaster. From one thing to the other, it has been a news breaking week. We thought we were doing well. We thought things were going well. We hadn't had any injuries. Truly, we were hit with injuries. One of our players was player of the week, so that was interesting. We had another win, so that's good. But then we hit with some big news. But before we take it any further, James, what do you think?
It's been a roller coaster this week, and yeah, it's been mental. And like you said, we've been talking about injuries, and last week we talked about Ashley joining the team,
Yeah.
um, and stuff like that. And it looks as though that may be more permanent than we thought it was going to be. So yeah, I think things have definitely moved along.
Even she was a roller coaster. Or like yesterday, she was released to only be brought back again today, which we were kind of expecting, because of everything that's gone on between Candace and then Williams. We had an idea that we were going to need this player. So I'm glad that Ashley was able to come back. That was really great. Maybe they could have given it, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe they thought about giving it to somebody else, but that's good that Ashley was able to have that spot to come back and now have 14 days. So let's see what happens. We have two more games, cup coming. So that'll be a good start for her.
I think it will, and yeah, I do kind of feel sorry sometimes when players come on a 7 or 10 day contract, and they only have such a small amount of time to make an
Yeah.
impact. Put themselves, like I said last week, in the shop window for other teams. But in actual fact, in this instance, she's kind of put herself, and she's obviously doing well in training because the Aces are not going to bring someone back that they don't think will make a
No.
difference. So the fact that they've made a difference straight off the bat is awesome.
Now, do you think she went home and then came back? Or you think she just stayed in Vegas? You think like she was just like they put her in a hotel for like a day or like don't go anywhere?
To be perfectly honest, I think she probably knew at the beginning of the week,
Yeah.
and they probably said to her, "Look, just hang around Vegas. We've got another 7 days at minimum for you.
Don't pack your bags yet.
Yeah, don't pack." I mean, she might not have unpacked, to be fair.
That's true. That is true, and the team probably provided her with enough clothes, so, you know, who knows?
I want a 7 day contract, by the way, because see the amount of gear teams give people like when you join a team. Like, I'm sorry, but I want a 7 day contract.
And honestly, they don't even get as much gear as you do in college. College athletes get so much gear. I've seen those videos of, like, players showing their gear at the beginning of the season, and it's enough for, like, a whole year, and when they play multiple years, they get new gear every single
Yeah.
year. So, I mean, a lot of players end up using like different apps, like for example, Players Trunk, where they end up giving away they sell it afterwards because it's a memorable. Like they wore it maybe once in a life. Like they probably wore the shirt once, not even. Some of them might have just been in a drawer, and then and they know fans are going to want to buy it.
I never thought about that actually. I need to speak to Michelle about that. But I'm sure she's got some of her Tennessee stuff kicking around. I think as well, like when you go to college,
Hmm.
like we don't have that experience here. Like college teams, you turn up and you get like a tatty jersey from like 10 years ago that they're still using, and like yeah, we don't get that experience over here. But because college is so big over there,
Oh
it
yeah.
is, and there's a lot of money in college,
Hmm.
especially now with nil and everything else as well. So yeah, like the fact that they get, because I think I seen one video, and it was like a freshman, and I think it was at Tennessee, and she literally had this big hold all bag, and
Yeah.
she opened it up, and it was like Mary Poppins bag. It was like just like stuff and
Shoes
everything.
coming out of there, shirts, shorts, everything comes out of there. And I mean, and that's not even a school that like I mean, SEC schools are great, but for example, Oregon football gets so many things due to their Nike being there, due to their partnership with Nike. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, the WNBA I feel like doesn't have that like maybe not that luxury. I know that players will have like their own gear, and I know Nike has a partnership with the WNBA, but you don't really see it too much in the WNBA, and it's growing. You're seeing players that are starting to now work on having their own brands and having their own products, so that way they can go in and claim that before the season.
Yeah, one thing you will see about Nike over the next couple of years is I think Nike will embed themselves both in the NBA and WNBA
Yeah.
more, since they have a 24% stake in the NBA. For a start, I don't know what the percentage is in the W, but obviously they want to have a WNBA team in
Mhm.
Portland run by Nike. So, like, you can only imagine that Nike will want to show
Yeah.
other team owners that, like, we're here and we'll give you whatever you want. And Nike can pretty much afford to do it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they can I wanna say Nike is the official partner of the WNBA.
Mhm.
So, unless you have an existing relationship, I wanna say with, like, Adidas or even, like, the brand Moolah Kicks now you're seeing that's more
Mhm.
female, like, it's a female shoe. You know, Nike is the one, like, unless you claim it prior to the season beginning, there's a rule
Mhm.
on that. You have to, it's Nike or nothing.
So, funny story. So, this Sunday is the third year anniversary of Across the Pond Sports. And way back before Moolah Kicks was a thing,
Yeah.
we had Natalie White, the
Oh,
founder, on
okay.
our podcast. I can't remember which number of episode is, but it is quite early, so it's probably about 3 years ago. But she came on, she explained the whole ethos of Moolah Kicks and
Oh,
everything.
it's
It's
amazing.
amazing. And I think Courtney Williams from
Yeah.
Sky,
She works with them. Mhm.
she wears Moolah Kicks. So, yeah, Natalie White, if you want to go listen to that episode on Across the Pond Sports, I would urge you to because she really has a clear vision even back then as
Yeah.
to what she wanted Moolah Kicks to be, and she's really grown that brand. Like I've been watching
Oh,
that brand grow since that interview, and I mean, she now no longer takes my calls, so she must have made it.
well, I know for sure, I watched it similar to you. I watched the brand growing. And, Asia Shepherd does a lot of work with Moolah Kicks. Now you're seeing it. Well, I know, I don't know if a lot of work, but I know she's posted her wearing shirts of Moolah Kicks. So definitely they're a very female friendly company. And that's amazing that they're, making a difference and that players are not just having to choose between, Nike and Adidas or even Puma, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you're seeing some players with Puma, but Moolah is, females don't really have that in the game. So it's great to when you have a female first brand that wants to make it, special for them. That's awesome. Mula is definitely somebody that has made a huge name. They work a lot with Destiny Henderson, if I'm not wrong. I think I've seen that. Courtney for sure. So it's great what Natalie's doing. She's young, she's making a huge difference in the game, and that's what it's all about. Being that female, making yourself in the room.
I actually remember that episode so well because even after it's like one of our most popular episodes for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think it was that engagement that Natalie had, like,
Yeah.
online at that time as well,
Mhm.
like, and
Oh yeah.
Moolah was so recognizable, like, straight away, like, it was a brand that you knew straight away, so she's done amazing with it and an amazing company, so well done to Natalie. However, we will have to talk about the Aces, and, like you said at the top, it's not really been a great week.
No. So let's start with the first roller coaster ride. Beginning of the week, we were hit with Candace, which I found it odd. If you look at the not the accident, or like the player injury report, it said she was, and I wrote this down because I noticed it. It said obviously, she's been having a fracture all season. She's been playing on that. But if you look at the player report, it said she had a different injury. So was she going through two injuries? Now it's obviously saying that she's, you know, the injury report is saying she's out because of her surgery. But the day before that, it said a completely different injury. So either it was wrong or is she battling both? And maybe that's what really caused her to get surgery. I thought that was interesting. It said she was out against the Lynx. That's what it was for a right ankle, but it turns out it's her left foot, a fracture. So
Hmm.
I like checked that. I was like, wait a minute. I thought that was odd. But I think, They've won the games since she's been gone still, so that's been good. Hasn't been comfortable. It's been a good amount. I think they've been doing really well in that and still making sure that they're still playing, as if she was there, but they're making best of what they can do during that time.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough when you lose someone who came in this off season
Yeah.
who was going to be a powerhouse and has been a powerhouse since she joined the team. But then, like, she's been gone well, since before All Star.
6, 7 games now?
Yeah, and it was like, oh, she's coming back, she's coming back, she's coming back, and then it's, ooh, she just had surgery. Oh, she's not going to be coming back anytime soon.
And she
Uh,
only has what, in 1-year contract? So, it'll be interesting to see if I don't wanna say if she's done, but it'll be interesting to see how this rest of the season plays out because will she be better by what, September?
so this is the weird thing. They've not really told us what they've said a fracture,
Yeah.
but they've not really said what the fracture is. Like, because the foot's quite. If anyone remembers David Beckham's left foot, it was insured for like £50 million because that was the foot that he like kicked the
Yeah.
ball with predominantly. And when he broke his fourth metatarsal, whatever it was, like it was this big, massive deal, and like he was going to miss all of this time. But then you have the flip side of that where like it could be on the heel or it could be like anywhere else on the foot that
Yeah.
maybe doesn't take as long. So they've kind of just listed her as undefined as to when she'll be
Yeah.
back,
Yeah,
which
they've
is
said
kind of weird.
the word they used was out indefinitely, and
Hmm.
they're just like, "Oh, what are you gonna do?" Right? Like,
Yeah,
but thankfully, they're still playing well without her. So thankfully, Becky has a way of showing that she can make do with what's going on. You know, Williams has also been out, but she's been out since the beginning of the season.
she's not
So
played yet.
she hasn't played yet. So I think, they're making do with they have such a core team that they're able to work around and let's see now with Ashley coming in, let's see how that will work too because haven't caught too many minutes of Ashley playing. I know she didn't play the last game, right before I think I wanna say was it the game against Chicago? I don't think she played.
I don't think it was. She definitely played against the Lynx because I've seen her on the Lynx games.
Yeah, but I think she was as DNP,
Hmm.
for the Chicago. So I think it'll be interesting to see, you know, who will take Candace's absence, like, and how the team's doing well. I mean, so I don't wanna say, like, it's obviously terrible that Candace has been injured. And, we obviously wish her well recovery, and we want her to get better soon and have a good, like, healthy, you know, left foot.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, I'm glad that the Aces are still able to continue and not let that affect them fully. They're still going through, they're still winning games, and they're still showing the energy of a winning team.
I mean, it does worry me slightly long term,
Yeah.
come playoffs,
Oh, yeah.
because Candace is a seasoned veteran who
Mhm.
can win championships. She's done it on 2 teams already. So it does that's what kinda worries me and niggles in the back of my brain is indefinitely. I mean, how long is indefinitely,
Yeah.
really? Is it the rest? I mean, because and in all fairness, like, if it was gonna be the season, I think they would have just said, "She's done for the season."
Yeah.
But the
So maybe they're
fact
having high hopes.
so I think they might have hopes that she's coming back
Yeah.
for the playoffs.
I mean, she has been, according to the report, playing on it all season. So obviously that's not healthy. But at the same time, maybe her recovery process will be a lot better. I mean, she's been playing on it all season, so it obviously was getting to a point where it started to probably bother her. But I think what's good is maybe it'll help her also come back to the game. Maybe her, depending on rehab and depending with her doctors what they recommend. And I know Becky will probably be having a good. I think they probably have a really good staff like on there that will be able to help her out and really and Candace has been in the game for a long time. So like she knows how to take care of her body. She obviously knows what she's doing. So and she knows when it's time to go.
Yeah, for sure. I think I don't think Mark Davis scrimps when it comes to looking after his players. I think we've seen
Yeah.
lots of evidence to support that. They have their alumni weekend coming up,
Yeah.
very soon as well. It is in August at some stage. I think it's the middle of August. So, like, yeah, I don't think Mark Davis messes around with that kind of stuff.
No.
He does look after his players, and we've
Mhm.
heard that from current players, former players. So, if lots of people are saying that, then it must be true.
Yeah.
We'd love to have Mark on the podcast at some point to, let him speak for himself. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough, especially when you lose someone who's going to be a key component, who's slotted and fitted in so well to this team.
Yeah.
But hopefully, I mean, just about to talk about another player who has led this team. I think Candace was a compliment to Asia.
Yeah. No, I agree there. And I know when I was reading about it, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be one of those things that you're obviously going to feel it, but you also have to like make do with it. So I think Asia, Asia can work with anybody.
Yeah,
I mean, we've seen it. And I think that's amazing because, when you have a player of that skill set who can work with pretty much everyone, that's definitely a key to a team. And Becky has definitely demonstrated that she's got the team going together. We've seen it. We're what, 22 and 2. That was a tricky word to say. Um, so going into it, obviously Candace is has been a big part of the team this year. But, I mean, I don't want to say like, oh, we did it without her last year. We can do it again without her, like because it's kind of mean. But I think we're gonna have a different mindset going into it. Now with her being injured, we're definitely Becky's gonna find workarounds. She's gonna continue to make it work. She's gonna use players that maybe haven't had like too much of a chance to be able to now go about it and have a couple more minutes. So that'll be interesting to see.
yeah.
But going off Asia, we were talking about her. She was player of the week, had an amazing game. She was what, Western Conference player of week 8 with 35 points, 14 rebounds. She's absolutely killing it this year. She's at this point where, I mean, she's done it all this year and she's not done. So to see her continue to go, she's definitely been a huge like influence. She's definitely making a huge name for herself in the WNBA. People know the WNBA, and or if even if you don't, you've heard of Asia Wilson. She's a personality. She knows how to control the narrative, which is amazing to see. For LeBron James we talked about that. LeBron James talked about her. People are talking about Asia Wilson, and that's amazing. I read somewhere she became the third person in WNBA history to have 35 points and 10 boards on 80% shooting. So when I read that, I was like, Asia's continuing. She's still pretty young. Um, I mean, she's not Leah Boston young, but she's still young and she's still going. She still has a lot more to go.
She's intense as well. Like,
Yes.
she's one of these players that, when we just talked about missing Candace, and yet Asia steps up, scores more points, more rebounds.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost as if the Aces as a team, because of Asia, they don't miss a heartbeat.
No.
Now that team, like if Kelsey wasn't there, if Chelsea wasn't there, like I think that team would struggle, but it would
Yeah.
still be a good team with Asia. But because you have this team that we've had together now for a couple of years,
Yeah.
like we're really seeing the fruit of that labor. And I think with the WNBA as a whole, that has been an issue.
Yeah.
They keep star players, and the rest of the roster changes year on year out.
Mhm.
Whereas in Vegas, they're kind of going a different route where they are keeping this core group together, and I think that's why we have continued to win games
Mhm.
after Candace has been injured, because you have players like Asia who is next level,
Yeah.
and somehow, like, she's in fifth gear and still manages to find sixth gear while everyone else is like struggling with third.
Oh yeah. She's definitely one of those players that you talk about once in a lifetime. You know, she is I think like you said, most teams in the WNBA have gone through a restructure, new coaches. new teams altogether. You're having different dynamics. People who have never played before together are now having to come together and like restructure. And that happens in all sports. People get traded, people go to the other teams. But seeing that here in the WNBA, like with the Aces, you have your core players that have been there, like you said, for a couple of years now. They know each other. They know how they play. They know their personalities. They get along with each other. And that's what really builds championships, is when you have that. I mean, look at the NBA, look at the Chicago Bulls, look at the Patriots. You see those teams that are those core teams that come together and they build a brand. Obviously, there's a couple pieces that change, and that happens in every sport. It's a business, but you have your course.
And it works well.
Yeah.
And they have done so well to get where
Mhm.
they're at. Now they played Chicago the other night,
Mhm.
and we talk about like those three players, Chelsea and Kelsey, and Asia, like all scoring 20 plus points,
Oh,
and like and Jackie, scrums in with 15, only 15. But what you look at is the bench usage, and this is again, I mentioned this before. This slightly worries me because you've used like two bench players in this game. This is a long condensed. Well, it's a busy condensed season
yeah.
that is kind of long. We're only just over halfway, and like Colson, George, and Jones don't get on the floor.
Mm-mm.
That slightly worries me. It was a close game. This
Yeah.
was a close game, but yeah, I kind of feel like you can't discount Becky. She has a plan. There's
Yeah.
obviously methods to the madness, as people might say. But at the same time, like I want to see more out of that bench because when it comes to the playoffs, if you've not got Candace, you are going to have to rely on that bench. And
Yeah.
if you go to rely on them and you haven't given them minutes during the regular season, we might get caught out. And this is building my anxiety slightly.
But you know what? This happened last year. I don't think we were faced with injury, but last year the rookies didn't get to play. I mean, their bench was minimal minutes, if any. You sometimes had games where those rookies sat on the bench and clapped like that. I mean, and that's again, that's being part of a team. You're not going to maybe play every single game unless you're a bench unless you're a team that is going to utilize the whole like team. But honestly, I think who knows Becky's plan? I mean, it's working.
Becky, Becky
Becky
knows
knows
her
Becky
plan.
knows her plan, and it's
Becky knows.
working, but again, I mean, what's the saying? Don't fix what's not broken. I hope that's right. But I think truthfully, like, Becky knows what she's doing, and, the players don't look exhausted. They don't look like they're, fighting for, like, to take a break. So I think right now what we're doing, I mean, I think maybe now with Candace being out, maybe that will give a little bit of time for the bench to step in a little more and see a couple more minutes that they wouldn't have seen. So I think that'll be good. We also beat the Lynx, so that was good too. I mean, we got to talk about beating teams. I mean,
And we beat them, and we did use the bench. To be fair,
yep. I know I read somewhere that they won by fifth straight game by 15 points. So it was like, but we didn't do 15 for the Chicago game. It was what,
no, no, Chicago. But
107 to 95. And I'm not great
yeah,
with math, so I'm not going to
just
pull
over,
out my calculator.
just
You
under
know.
15 will be fine. But I think what we see with the Minnesota game is this is the game that Asia took over,
Yeah.
and this is the game she got her 35 points. But still, Kelsey and Jack end up with like 16 and 19.
Yeah.
Clark comes in, she gets 11, and you see Bell get 16 minutes, which I think that is going to be so important down the stretch
Oh
of
yeah.
the season. George came in, she got 10 minutes. But yeah, it's just kind of, I don't know, like when Candace came in, everyone was kind of like, oh, well, championships in the bag.
Yeah.
And now Candace is not there. I kind of feel like we're the same way. Like
Yeah.
there's like because we're able to put in performances like this without Candace, like we are able actually to still put in good performances.
Oh
Don't
yeah,
get me wrong, like not every play is perfect,
no,
defense and offense, but actually when you look at the other teams and what they're doing, like other teams are really struggling.
hmm
And like everyone was talking at the beginning of the season, Liberty, Aces, playoff final. But like there's other teams there that have I don't know if they've looked at the Aces as a blueprint for how to build a team. But I really feel like Dallas has
I was just about to say Dallas. Yeah,
because they really feel like I really feel like they've kind of build their team on the same kind of solid ground. You've got your core vets, build around those vets, much like they have in Las Vegas. So it'll be interesting to see if because we've got the Commissioner's Cup final coming up on the
yeah.
15th of August, which
hmm
I am very upset about because I'm moving house on the 15th of August. So it's going to be a long day and night as I have to
Yeah.
stay up and watch that game. Um, but that's the 15th of August. I mean, that has come around really quickly as well.
Yeah, and that'll be in Vegas, so that'll be really good too. We'll have
Oh,
that
oh
support of
yeah,
our fan base. We'll be coming back over there, and then after that, we go to the White House when we go to Washington. And I actually did not know the Houston Astros are going the like 2 weeks before the Aces. So the Astros are also going to the White House. They're going to be honored by the president. So they're going to go first. And then 2 weeks later, when we're in town to play the Mystics, we'll be there, which I think was really cool because I saw that and I was like, oh, the Astros, I forgot that they even won the World Series. And no offense to Houston Astro fans, but
trash straws.
I
No,
mean, it's all about the Tampa Bay Rays this year. But, well, that's a different
I do have some breaking news though.
um,
Across the pond, WNBA will also be at the White House for the Aces.
okay.
So we have our roving reporter. She's not really roving because she lives in Washington D.C.
Okay.
But but no, Jamie, who actually covers our IndyCar podcast, she's going to go to the White House on our behalf and cover the event for us, which is awesome. So she just needs to pass the Secret Service checks. She's promised me she's never been arrested, so we should be good.
Let's hope.
But yeah, so yeah, across the pond, WNBA will be at the White House when the Aces are there and being honoured by the president, which I think is a massive honour for the Aces, but I
Yeah.
think on the same token is a massive honour for us to be there to be able to cover it.
That'll be awesome. I can't wait for that. I know there's like some people that are not too thrilled about that, but I think it'll be a good experience for them to go out there, continue to show the world and continue to make a difference and empower women to want to play and to continue being a movement. And I think that'll be a great experience for all parties involved. I mean, the Aces are a team that have really become such a voice in this game, and fans are definitely, they might not follow the WNBA too well, but they know the Aces because they've presented themselves and they made themselves super relevant and made themselves want to be in front of all these people.
I think it's important as well that there was some heat thrown the president's way when
Mhm.
he announced that the Golden Knights were the first pro team to win a championship in Vegas. He took a lot of heat for that from the Aces players.
Oh yeah.
So, so I do hope that maybe we have a bit of a joke about that,
Mm,
and people can move on
yeah.
because yeah, he made a mistake, and like it's not great he made that mistake, especially right now. But he made it. I think from what I remember when it happened, I think he kind of owned up to it. He's like, "All right, yeah, oops, sorry
Yeah.
about that." But hopefully, we can make a bit of a joke about it, and we can kind of move on and because his wife, I remember his wife was at the Olympics a couple of years back, when the 3v3 tournament was going on, and she got to meet Kelsey Plum then
Oh,
because
that's cool. I actually did
she
not
was
know that.
yeah, because she was playing on that 3v3 team at the Olympics, and the first lady went to watch them, because they weren't really allowed fans, but obviously you were allowed dignitaries because, of
Yeah.
course, you know, that you've got money, you can turn up anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
But so I remember Kelsey back then saying, "Oh, it was such an honor to get to meet the first lady and stuff." So I'm kind of hoping that we can kind of go back to that in this instance because, like, as someone who's not American, as someone kind of outside looking in, one of the one of the things that Americans do really well is celebrate themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And like, what better way to be standing in the White House in front of the world's media? Because the world's media is there for this event.
Yes.
It isn't just sports media; it's the world's
Mhm.
media. So, what better way to kind of put yourselves out there? And I think that's awesome. It brings light to, oh, we do have a WNBA. Because, there are some people in the world that still might not know that it's there. I mean,
Exactly.
they might have been living under a rock, but it highlights it and hopefully puts it more in the public sphere so people will come and watch more.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and I think I had mentioned a little bit of that too, and I think that's where they can come in front of these fans who maybe are watching just the news in general, not watching like ESPN, not watching anything sports related, and they're able to see like, oh, the WNBA, like the WNBA, the Las Vegas Aces are with the president. Like, they might not know who they are because some people, like you said, might be living under a rock. But we encourage them to continue, to try new things. So
Yeah,
I think we need to talk about the elephant in the room. Um, the final roller coaster piece that has, well, maybe not the final roller coaster piece that has hit our team this week.
I don't think I can take much more, so I hope this is the last.
I hope it is, because the new week is coming. Let's see. Let's see. I mean, we can only hope, right? So, Williams was arrested on domestic battery charges on the 25th. 9 charges filed against her. I mean, at the end of the day, the team did release a statement and the WNBA did as well. So the ACES said that as an organization, they condemn domestic violence. At this time, she would be precluded from participating in team activities. And I think, when something like this happens, we see it in other sports. We want to see what the team is going to do. That's such a big thing. How is the organization going to stand behind this? Are they going to allow it to slide? Are they going to take a stand? It's sometimes it could be, you see this all the time in men's sports. You see, all right, a big player is doing something off the court that is not right, right? I mean, at the end of the day, this is not something that you take lightly. So now going into this, you got to see what the team is going to say, and then obviously the league as well, because you see this in the NFL, you see this in the NBA, even MLB. You see this in all sports. You don't really see it as much in women's sports, or if you do, you don't hear about it as much. But for this to come out, she hasn't been playing, so that's also been tough, right? And now for this to happen, obviously you I am not too sure.
I'm gonna be honest, like, I've always had this stance whenever it comes to domestic abuse or sexual assault in those realms. I said it, and like I can't change my stance because it's the WNBA. It's a stance I've taken.
Yeah.
Um, like the quarterback for he's now with the Cleveland Browns, who was with the Houston Texans, the
Oh,
QB.
exactly who you're talking
Yeah,
about. His name is on the tip of my tongue,
I
and
know. Can't remember. It's
I
fine. He's not important anyway. But he had 23 cases against him at one point.
yeah.
Still has some pending at the moment, civil charges anyway.
Mhm.
And like my stance is, you don't play professional sports because professional athletes, even when I was a kid growing up, they were idols.
Yes,
As a kid, you look up to them.
very much so.
How can a kid look up to a player that is arrested on these charges, these types of charges? Now, obviously, there's other types of charges that people may say the same. Obviously, there's murder and there's
Oh, yeah.
attempted murder and all these other things. But just talking about these two specifically, that these are things that if you're accused, you should be suspended. If
Yep.
you're found guilty, you never play pro sports again.
Yeah.
like that, and there should be a line in the sand with all sports in the world without any question. That should be I and that's just my personal stance.
No,
Obviously, the WNBA, the NFL, the NBA, they all have their own rules,
yeah.
and some follow them and some don't. But I do like how the Aces and WNBA did come out very quickly
Yes.
to say will not be taking part, and I
Totally agree.
think that that is important.
I agree with you completely. These people are seen as idols. Look how many people, especially young kids, follow these games. You see this in the NFL. Their favorite players being hit with, charges like this, allegations. Obviously we don't know if she's guilty or not. We don't. We can't say it. We have to. These are allegations at the moment. Until you said until they're found guilty, then we obviously, then it's a different situation. But you can't take these lightly in this world that we live in, because we see it often in sports. But then again, athletes are people. So, and you see it, what I mean, you might not know what your neighbor Bob is doing, but you know what they're doing because they're big time athletes. They are idols. But they're still human beings. And us as human beings, we make mistakes, we do things, but sometimes it's a lot more serious than just taking a piece of paper from, like where you don't belong. It's finding, it's these charges. So now the one thing I didn't know was that she had back in 2019, she had been suspended for 10 games, over something kind of for another domestic violence incident. So when you have this, I think it's one of these situations where, maybe that was you thought maybe it was a one-time thing, obviously, where they've changed, they've grown from it, they've learned from it, it was handled, of course. But now going into it and seeing it a second time, allegations a second time, I think it makes a big difference, and the league obviously has to really consider what to do, because if they allow this, what is that showing? For what kind of precedent is that setting for, other players? We obviously don't want to start a trend, but they're going to say, look, or even fans. Fans are going to see that, and like parents are going to want their kids to not watch a sport or not be like, no, don't. That's terrible. You know, so I think at the end of the day, it's one of these situations where you got to be cautious. The leagues, the team have to be really cautious about what they do, because it doesn't just affect the team. It doesn't just affect the player. It affects the whole league as a whole, because everybody is going to be following what's going on.
I think as well, like this because she had that chance in 2019
Yeah.
and she served a 10-game suspension. That I mean, I can't remember ever hearing about this.
No.
Uh, but they gave her 10-game suspension, which in terms of how many games are played, at that point there was 38 games in a season. That's a big chunk of the season
Yep.
that she missed. So fair play to the WNBA. They handled that, I think, well. They've given her the second chance, and I do believe in second chances. I'm
Yeah.
not a complete tool, but I kind of believe in second chances. Unfortunately, I think this is the last season she's employed by the Aces.
Yeah.
I don't think Becky, I don't think Mark,
Nope.
I don't think Kathy have anywhere to stand on this other than saying, "I'm really sorry, but you cannot play basketball in
Nope.
the WNBA anymore because of this. Like you've done this to yourself." And at the end of the day, the player has done this to themselves because it's them that have acted
Yeah.
in this way. And it's really sad because I loved watching her last season.
Oh,
Last season
100%.
she was absolutely immense last season. She stepped up in big games. But again, to your point, you know, the WNBA podcasts that we put out have young listeners whose parents like send us messages saying, "Oh, we love listening to your shows, like when we're driving to games and like all this kind of stuff." Like these same young
Yeah.
basketball players aren't just listening to our show; they're watching games and they're watching their idols like Asia Wilson
Oh, yeah.
like Sue Bird or Diana Taurasi, like they're looking up to these absolute idols who we put on a pedestal
Mhm.
because they're athletes and they're the best in the world at what they do.
Yeah.
Like to your point, they are human and people make mistakes.
Yeah.
And yes, you might want to give someone a second chance if they've had an instance in the past. You give them the second chance, but if they don't take that chance, then sadly, unfortunately, I think you have to go.
And I think too, I mean, like, not to say that she hasn't been playing, but, you know, maybe that might be a factor too. Look, you've been injured all season too. It's a business. No offense, but like it's a business. I mean, the team has to make a decision whether the organization, coaching staff, everybody, what not to say that they should get rid of her right away because again, you never know, but I think a big thing is hasn't been playing, all of this is going on. I mean, as a team leader, I think it's important to you have to make the best decision for like those around you and will fans want to stop coming to games if they had chosen a different stance? You know, so I think it really depends on there's obviously stuff that we don't know, right? There's obviously going to be secrets that they're going to keep. The teams have to keep internal that they're not going to reveal ever to the public, which is fine. That's how every organization is. There's going to be stuff that has to be kept internal to keep like everything from not falling apart. But I think at the end of the day, there's obviously going to be things that, the public is going to see. And that makes a big difference. The fans, whether it's kids, parents, even like investors, like corporate partners, they're not going to want to be associated with something like that, especially if you have a family friendly brand. They're not going to want to have that. And the team doesn't want to lose out on their partners because of a player's actions. I mean, I know I used to hear Bill Belichick used to get rid of players or he would not have that on his team, things like that. So I think it's super important that I'm glad that the team and the WNBA itself has taken a stance and really shown that they don't approve of this. This is not okay. Just because they're a player in the organization doesn't mean that they stand behind it. And I think that's a good that they got in front of it right as it happened and didn't let it like simmer on.
That I mean, that's important. I mean, the other aspect of this is the WNBA has only so many spots for players,
Exactly.
and Williams was taking one of those spots up while being injured anyway, and like this kind of compounds the issue. Now, like I said before, suspend her. If she's found guilty, though,
Then
then yeah, I think we have to move on. If she's found not guilty for whatever reason, then she's been found not guilty,
yeah,
and you then look to right, do we give her another chance? Now, at the same token, I don't think she would get another chance in Vegas. I think she would probably have to go to one of the expansion teams or something, but then she'd probably be levied out to one of them. But like we're talking about somebody who's, and this is the thing that annoys me when you see someone who's so talented
yeah,
and like, not that life isn't easy just because you're talented.
no,
Life can be very difficult, and so you do have to weigh that up. But
hmm
I always have had this kind of strong stance on this kind of thing. So I'm sorry if people don't like it, but it's just the way that I feel. If there's an accusation, you're suspended. If you're guilty, you're out the door, and that's just the way that I've always kind of been. And if you're not guilty, you're not guilty, and
no, yeah,
and you move on as best you can, and you hope that the player or athlete can. But yeah, it's still sad. So hopefully over the next couple of weeks, I can't remember when the court date is when she's
oh
due
yeah,
back in
I don't
court,
remember that one either.
but I mean she's out on bail or on reconnaissance, so she can float about and do as she pleases. But yeah, hopefully for her, I hope she's working on herself, and
Yeah,
there will be a mental health aspect of this as well. I'm sure that she needs to work on as well.
yeah. But in better news, we talked about this earlier. Ashley got signed back to another 7 days, so that's great for her. And then we have a couple games coming up. We got Dallas again. Kind of worried about Dallas because they've beat us and they've beat New York. So not too sure how that's going to go. But it is being played in Vegas, so I do feel a little bit better about that. Like when we play games in Vegas, I feel a lot more like our home crowd is there. And then we're playing against Atlanta on August 1st. So, and that's cool because that game's actually going to be raising awareness for breast cancer. So they're doing a lot in honor of it. They're having events before that. They're giving away giveaways at the actual game itself. So that's really cool, especially women's sports, raising awareness for breast cancer and, in general, that's an amazing opportunity there. And that will be also played in Vegas. So we have two games in Vegas upcoming.
I really like the cancer awareness
Yes.
side of sports in general. Like in the UK right now, they do big campaigns around like men's sports. It's prostate cancer,
Yes.
and like I mean, 5 years ago, I didn't even know prostate cancer was a thing.
Hmm.
But now, like it's on TV,
Yeah.
you're being made aware of it, and I think for women, obviously, breast cancer is.
Hmm.
My grand passed away from breast cancer when I was like 3 years old, so like I know how hard that can hit
Oh, yeah.
once you're older and you realize what it was. Because like my mom didn't have her mom, and like
Yeah.
that's a really tough thing to go through. So I'm glad they bring these things um, out in the open
Oh,
and
yeah.
highlight them so that people, do go and get checked if they feel that they need to. So I like it. I think
Mhm.
the more we do of this kind of thing, the better.
Yeah, I agree. I think they are going to be offering like a mammography before one of the games. I think like the day before, in the Vegas area. So that'll be good that they're giving back to the community. And I know the actual game itself, they're going to be doing like the signs that say like I stand up to cancer for, and it'll say like who they're standing up to cancer for. I mean, most people have somebody they know that has passed from cancer or has survived it or who has gone through that experience. So this is this part of sports that we come together as a unity. They use their influence of being an idol off the court and showing that we can all come together for a common goal of raising awareness. I like you said for prostate cancer, you see it in hockey. I know hockey's a big sport that promotes it very well, but also mental health awareness. I know especially in Canada, they do a lot with mental health awareness, and you're seeing that with athletes as well. So I think that's great that athletes are coming together and raising awareness on these issues that are going on, health, just everything in general, even social justice. I mean, I know that's a topic of debate, but for sure, sports as a unity for raising awareness in the healthcare industry is amazing.
Even on the social justice side, like I like how we've moved away, or most people have moved away from this shut up and dribble kind of mentality.
Yes.
Like I think the world has thought, yeah, you know what, that's probably not because players have this. I mean, we've seen the Atlanta Dream a couple of years ago
Hmm.
with one of their owners who was running for Senate, and they really stood up for themselves, but like
Hmm.
for the people of Atlanta and for the people that they were or the community that they're in.
Yeah.
And like that's so important. So yeah, I definitely like the social justice
Yeah.
part of the platform that these players use. I think is very important.
I think that's important too. I think like we've talked about this episode, athletes are people and they're going to except they have bigger social media followings than most of us. So it's what they say is going to be heard by a bigger crowd. And so what they say will maybe your grandma on Facebook will not be commenting about, hey, what are you writing about? It's going to be someone else's grandma on Facebook talking about what this player said. So it's always important that, you know, and they're very well trained on what they should say in front of the public. And, and they have media training. College athletes do, high school athletes, I mean, maybe not high school athletes, but they have a little bit of it. But you start to learn what is appropriate to say, and even then, you learn to say it in ways while you can make a point the way you want to. You do it in a way that is going to be well heard. Listen, at the end of the day, anything you say is going to be misconstrued by somebody. So at some point, you either let them go on about what they want to say, like, back to you about what you feel, or you're not going to stay silent because you think someone's grandma is going to like rag on you. No, you have to be like speak about it.
Yeah, for sure. But we end on good news, which is great. and that is that we get Ashley back for at least another week. However, I would hazard a guess that she may be back for a bit longer than just 7 days,
Yeah,
given Candace is now out for it or indefinitely.
indefinitely. So, on that news, I think you guys know who we are. You guys know we'll be back. So, stay tuned. Keep subscribed.